اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء وخضع لها كل شيء وذل لها كل شيء وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء. يا نور يا قدوس يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تهتك العصام. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النقام. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعام. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تقطع الرجاء. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء. اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبته وكل خطيئة أخطأتها. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك وأستشفع بك إلى نفسك وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك وأن توزعني شكرك وأن تلهمني ذكرك. اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضع متذلل خاشع أن تسامحني وترحمني وتجعلني بقسمك راضيا قانعا وفي جميع الأحوال متواضعا. اللهم وأسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته وأنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته وعظم فيما عندك رغبته. اللهم عظم سلطانك وعلى مكانك وخفي مكرك وظهر أمرك وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك، ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك. اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا ولا لقبائحي ساترا ولا لشيء من عملي القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك ظلمت نفسي وتجرأت بجهلي وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي. اللهم مولاي كم من قبيح سترته وكم من فادح من البلاء أقلته وكم من عثار وقيته وكم من مكروه دفعته وكم من ثناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرته. اللهم عظم بلائي وأفرط بي سوء حالي وقصرت بي أعمالي وقعدت بي أغلالي وحبسني عن نفعي بعد آمالي وخدعتني الدنيا بغرورها ونفسي بجنايتها ومطالي. يا سيدي فأسألك بعزتك ألا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء عملي وفعالي ولا تفضحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري ولا تعاجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وفساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي. وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في كل الأحوال رؤوفا وعلي في جميع الأمور عطوفا. إلهي وربي من لي غيرك أسأله كشف ضري والنظر في أمري. إلهي ومولاي أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي ولم أحترس فيه من تزيين عدوي فغرني بما أهوى وأسعده على ذلك القضاء فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعض حدودك وخالفت بعض أوامرك. فلك الحجة علي في جميع ذلك ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاؤك وألزمني حكمك وبلاؤك. وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا مستغفرا منيبا مقرا مذعنا معترفا لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك عذري وإدخالك إياي في سعة من رحمتك اللهم فاقبل عذري وارحم شدة ضري وفكني من شد وثاقي. يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني ورقة جلدي ودقة عظمي. يا من بدأ خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي، هبني لابتداء كرمك وسالف برك بي. يا إلهي وسيدي وربي، أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك وبعد من طوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك ولهج به لساني من ذكرك واعتقده ضميري من حبك، وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خاضعا لربوبيتك، هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تضيع من ربيته أو تبعد من أدنيته أو تشرد من آويته أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمته. وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي أتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدة وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقة وبشكرك مادحة، وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققة، وعلى ضمائر حوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة، وعلى جوارح سعت إلى أوطان تعبدك طائعة وأشارت باستغفارك مذعنة. ما هكذا الظن بك ولا أخبرنا بفضلك عنك يا كريم. يا ربي وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها، على أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه قليل مكثوه يسير بقاؤه قصير مدته، فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله، لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك. وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض يا سيدي، فكيف بي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحقير المسكين المستكين. يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي، لأي الأمور إليك أشكو ولما منها أضج وأبكي، لأليم العذاب وشدته أم لطول البلاء ومدته؟ فلئن صيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك، فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي
صبرت على عذابك فكيف أصبر على فراقك. وهبني صبرت على حر نارك فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك. أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجائي عفوك. فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا لئن تركتني ناطقا لأضجن إليك بين أهلها ضجيج الآملين ولأصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين ولأبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين ولأنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين. يا غاية آمال العارفين يا غياث المستغيثين يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين ويا إله العالمين. أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته وذاق طعم عذابها بمعصيته وحبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته وهو يضج إليك ضجيجا مؤمل لرحمتك ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك. يا مولاي فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك. أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك. أم كيف يحرقه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه. أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفه. أم كيف يتقلقل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقه. أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا رب. أم كيف يرجو فضلك في عتقه منها فتتركه فيها. هيهات ما ذلك الظن بك ولا المعروف من فضلك ولا مشبه لما عاملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك. فباليقين أقطع لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاحديك وغضيت به من إخلاد معانديك لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما وما كان لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما. لكنك تقدست أسماؤك أقسمت أن تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين وأنت جل ثناؤك قلت مبتدأ وتطولت بالإنعام متكرما. أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون. إلهي وسيدي فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقضية التي حتمتها وحكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته وكل ذنب أذنبته وكل قبيح أسررته وكل جهل عملته كتمته أو أعلنته أخفيته أو أظهرته وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جوارحي وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم وبرحمتك أخفيته وبفضلك سترته وأن توفر حظي من كل خير تنزله أو إحسان تفضله أو بر تنشره أو رزق تبسطه أو ذنب تغفره أو خطأ تستره يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك رقي يا من بيده ناصيتي يا عليما بضري ومسكنتي يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب أسألك بحقك وقدسك وأعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي في الليل والنهار بذكرك معمورة وبخدمتك موصولة وأعمالي عندك مقبولة حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا يا سيدي يا من عليه معولي يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب قو على خدمتك جوارحي واشدد على العزيمة جوانحي وهب لي الجد في خشيتك والدوام في الاتصال بخدمتك حتى أسرح إليك في ميادين السابقين وأسرع إليك في المبادرين وأشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين وأخافك مخافة الموقنين وأجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين اللهم ومن أرادني بسوء فارد ومن كادني فكده واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك وأقربهم منزلة منك وأخصهم زلفة لديك فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك وجد لي بجودك واعطف علي بمجدك واحفظني برحمتك واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا وقلبي بحبك متيما ومن علي بحسن إجابتك واغلني عثرتي واغفر زلتي فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك وأمرتهم بدعائك وضمنت لهم الإجابة فإليك يا رب نصبت وجهي وإليك يا رب مددت يدي فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي وبلغني مناي ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي يا سريع الرضا اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء فإنك فعال لما تشاء يا من اسمه دواء وذكره شفاء وطاعته غنى ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء وسلاحه البكاء يا سابغ النعم يا دافع النقم يا نور المستوحشين في الظلام يا عالما لا يعلم صل على محمد وآل محمد وافعل بي ما أنت أهله وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا صلوات.
Ahsantum. Let us remember the marhumin of our families, our community, the sponsors of today's program, and send them a gift of Surah Al-Fatiha. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد إن شاء الله. Inshallah, we'll begin the majlis in just a few minutes.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bar Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. I will ask Brother Mustafa Hassan to come and recite Quran Sharif and start the majlis. Mustafa Hassan. Bar Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لم يكن الذين كفروا من أهل الكتاب والمشركين منفكين حتى تأتيهم البينة رسول من الله يتلو صحفا مطهرة فيها كتب قيمة وما تفرق الذين أوتوا الكتاب إلا من بعد ما جاءتهم البينة وما أمروا ليعبدوا الله المخلصين له الدين حنفاء ويقيموا الصلاة ويؤتوا الزكاة ذلك الدين القيمة إن الذين كفروا من أهل الكتاب والمشركين في نار جهنم خالدين فيها أولئك هم شر البرية إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات أولئك هم خير البرية جزاؤهم عند ربهم جنات عدن تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها أبدا رضي الله عنه ورضوا عنه ذلك لمن خشي ربه صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Salutations to Lady Zainab, the lady of knowledge, patience, and courage, the lady who carried the message of Karbala, whose voice continues to echo from the courtyard of Yazid. While addressing Yazid, she recited the third ayat of Surah Al-Imran, 169th ayat. Do not think of those who are slain for the cause of Allah as dead. They are alive with their Lord and receive sustenance from Him. And she further said, you may therefore do any treachery that you have, make all your attempts and try all you can. By Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you cannot remove us from the minds of people and you cannot fade our message. You will never reach our glory and can never wash the stain of this crime from your hands. 1400 years and the words are so true. Bar Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salwa. I will request Hadia Rizvi to come and recite poetry. Hadia Rizvi. Bar Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salwa.
Did you see the role you would have in history? Did you know the reverence that would be shown to your memory? Did you smile when you witnessed us talk so lovingly about you? Tell me, Zainab, how did it hurt? Tell me, Zainab, how did it hurt? Tell me what you told the others. Tell me, Zainab, how did it come to bleed? And where did it hurt? Did you know I would love you? That there are those whose tears fall for you? That there are those whose sighs are filled with sorrow over you? Take us by the hand and show us where it hurt. How did you come to bleed, O daughter of Ali? Show me what you showed the others. Tell me what you told the others. Because don't you see, it wasn't only to be you and your family who bleed. Take me by the hand and tell me where it hurts. Take me by the hand, I will show you my observation. I cry when I think of you talking to Yazid, or when I think of you holding on Muhammad's mattress to your cheek. Oh Zainab, how did you come to bleed? My Zainab, how can I show you what you mean to me? We sing this song, our lives a brief glimmer of a story that blends us together. Shall I show you, Zainab, how you came to be in this heart that beats inside of me?
Salwa. I'll now ask Masuma Hassan to come and recite the poetry, please. Bar Muhammad Ali Muhammad Salwa.
Salawat.
Allah.
This is a poem I wrote about Bibi Zainab. What better role model could we acclaim, both man and angel praising her name? The sandy plains of Karbala did not make her strength falter. The test awaiting her from Mecca could not even stop her. O Zainab, for the difficulties you endured, surely you deserve the ultimate reward. One by one, everyone they did martyr, your two young sons met their creator. Bound by chains, body bound by chains, voice flowed free, the blood of Ali in your veins, you saw nothing but beauty. Your beloved taken away, your title dishonored, yet you preached every day to commemorate the martyred. Islam survived through your guidance, faith thrived through your remembrance. Each speech you gave reminded us to always be brave in the face of injustice. Salawat.
I'll share a beautiful saying of Imam, our sixth Imam Jafar al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. Says the reality of taqwa is this, that if you have exposed what's in your heart, place it on a tray and take it to the market, then you should not be ashamed of a single item you have displayed. Bar Muhammad Ali Muhammad Salawat. Now I will request Honorable Hujjatul Islam al Muslimin, Dr. Sayyid Sulaiman Hassan Abdi, to come and address the Majlis. Bar Muhammad Ali Muhammad Salwa.
صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. سورة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد فقد قال الله عز وجل في القرآن المجيد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فاصبر صبرا جميلا صلوا على محمد وآل محمد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Before we begin today's majlis, I would like to request all of you to recite Surah Al-Fatiha for the mother of Brother Jamshed Ghazi and also for the mother of Sister Samin Raza. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant these marhumeen His mercy and His forgiveness and grant them the company of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad for their reward in the hereafter. Please recite Surah Al-Fatiha after Salawat ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Salli ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Today we remember one of the heroes of Ahlul Bayt, one of those people who is responsible for not only our knowledge of the events of Karbala, but even our knowledge of the message of Islam and the survival of the religion and the teachings of Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. And that is the granddaughter of our Prophet, the daughter of Imam Ali and Fatimatu Zahra, the sister of Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, Lady Sayyida Zainab al-Kubra, salamullahi alayha. She is one of those people who was very closely associated not only with Imam Hussein, but with Imam Ali during the days of his leadership, Imam Hassan during the days of his leadership and imamat, Imam Hussein during the days of his leadership and imamat, and perhaps most importantly and most centrally, the beginning portion of the imamat of our fourth Imam, Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam. And there is a very big similarity between Lady Zainab and Lady Fatimatu Zahra salamullahi alayha. In many different ways, in not just the circumstances of their life, but in their values, in their character, in their knowledge, in their worship. One of the titles of Sayyida Zainab is that she was the second Fatimatu Zahra. She was the lesser or the younger Fatimatu Zahra. And among the many ways that we find a similarity is that after the death of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all of those people who had any kind of anger at what Prophet Muhammad had taught and had brought. All of those people who were enemies of Islam and did not want to hear a message that all people are equal regardless of their tribe, regardless of their wealth, regardless of their power, and that even Arab and non-Arab, there is no superiority of one over the other, but all are equally creatures of Allah. Those people who had the power, those people who thought that they were better than others, those people who thought that they were meant to rule and other people were meant to be followers or meant to be slaves, they were enemies of our Prophet, but they never were able to express that animosity. After the death of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, imagine all of those enemies, they expressed their anger and their animosity towards Imam Ali alayhi salam. Nobody was an enemy of Imam Ali. Those people who did not like Imam Ali, they were enemies of God. They were enemies of the Prophet. They were enemies of the Quran. They were enemies of Tawheed and the message of liberation that comes from Tawheed. That was the reason why they did not want to follow Imam Ali. It was because they didn't want to follow God. It was because they didn't want to follow Prophet Muhammad. It was because they didn't want to follow the Quran. But they didn't have the ability or they didn't have the courage to say that I don't accept the Prophet, I don't accept Allah, I don't accept the message of Islam. They gave themselves the courage to say that I will not accept the leadership of Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam. Never forget though, this is not a debate about the successor to Prophet Muhammad. This is not a disagreement about who is going to be the leader of the Ummah after the Prophet. In reality, it is a refusal to accept the Prophet himself and the message of the Prophet and the message of the Quran, which is belief in one Creator and following His commandments with sincerity and with humility. So when that difficult period came in Islamic history and people stood up and refused to follow Imam Ali alayhi salam, Imam Ali was not always able to express his right, because all of the anger, all of the animosity, all of the hatred of the people towards Islam, some of them had been bottling that hatred for 23 years, ever since Prophet Muhammad first called them to Tawheed and said, قُولُوا لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ تُفْلِحُوا. Say La ilaha illallah and I will bring you a message of salvation. So for that many years they had been bottling up that animosity, that hatred, and now it was the first time that they felt they could express it. So the same way that Abu Jahl and Abu Lahab and Abu Sufyan wanted to extinguish the light of Islam, after the death of Prophet Muhammad, they still wanted, and those who were their followers, they wanted to extinguish the light of Islam. But then they said, we are going to extinguish the light of Islam by silencing Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa alihi. Now they said that we are going to extinguish the light of Islam by silencing or by ending the life of Imam Ali. So who was it who was able to stand up and be, in some ways, the public face of the message of Islam? To be able to give Imam Ali the space to be able to convey his message and his right to the people when there was so much anger and animosity and hatred of Ahlul Bayt. That was Lady Fatimatu Zahra salamullahi alayha. She had that courage because when she was still a young girl in Mecca, people would attack her father Rasulullah. And they would surround him and throw stones at him. They would injure him. They would throw garbage at him and try to marginalize him, try to insult him. And as a young girl, Lady Fatima salamullahi alayha, she would be there to comfort, to help dress the wounds, clean the wounds of the Prophet, and give him her support and what strength a young girl was able to offer. And it was such a strong support that our Prophet said, "My young daughter is like a mother, a protector, a caretaker for her own father." He gave her the title Ummu Abiha. So Lady Fatima had that courage because she had seen hardship, she had seen oppression, and she had grown up ready to sacrifice and risk her own life. It wasn't something new for her. And so after the death of the Prophet, if we see that Imam Ali's message was not extinguished, if we see that his voice was not silenced, if we see that people found out that he objected to what was taking place, then in the beginning, even more than the struggle of Imam Ali himself and the voice of Imam Ali himself, it was the voice and the struggle and the courage of his wife and the daughter of the Prophet, Fatimatu Zahra salamullahi alayha. This is not to deny what Imam Ali did. He was there, defending his right, defending Islam, arguing against the evil that had entered into the heart of the Muslim community. But if it hadn't been for Fatima salamullahi alayha and her courageous stand, then with all of the power and all of the money and all of the time that those oppressive governments ruled, they would have censored and they would have extinguished. And we would not have any real memory of the struggle that Imam Ali did engage in. This is something that governments, they did. Even some of our imams who were martyred because they were able to hide what they did. We only have certain narrations. We have no certainty about the circumstances, sometimes the day and the way in which our imams were oppressed or martyred. Because a government, if they want to censor something, then they're able to pay people to make up false stories. They're able to convince people that we are sadder than anybody else over the death of this member of the family of the Prophet. We love Imam Ali more than anybody else. We come to him for advice. We come to him for guidance. We come to him and we offer him whatever he wants. He didn't want to be the leader. He didn't want to be the first person to become the commander and the leader of the Muslim Ummah after the Prophet. This is the propaganda that people would have made, and it would have been difficult for us to say that it is not true. But why is it not possible? Because now if you go not to the memory of Ahlul Bayt, not to the history that is reported by Imam Ali himself, by Ahlul Bayt themselves, but even if you go to Bukhari, and even if you go to Muslim, and even if you go to the general history that is known to the rest of the Muslim community, there is no denying and there is no doubting that Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayha never made her peace with those who denied the imamat and the leadership of Imam Ali alayhi salatu wassalam. That was a courageous stand which prevented any government, any powerful person from ever trying to censor, hide, and deny that Imam Ali was not okay with what happened. He wasn't a friend of those people who took away his right, denied his position, and in doing so denied the rights and the interests of all of the Muslims and all of humanity. If you can understand that, then we can understand exactly what was the role of the daughter of Fatima Zahra, Zainab bint Ali alayhi salatu wassalam, during and after Karbala. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. There's many other similarities, but this is probably the most important and the most significant and the most beautiful similarity. That Fatima Zahra had an essential role in standing by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa from the beginning. And she had an essential role in making sure nobody could forget what was the claim and what was the right of Imam Ali. And if it hadn't been for her, then history probably would have forgotten. Some people would still remember because Ahlul Bayt would still have kept alive the memory. But history would have forgotten. Why was it that Ahlul Bayt objected? And they might say that it was just a competition over leadership or these false ideas that some people believe in. If it hadn't been for Lady Zainab salamullahi alayha, then we would not know about Karbala. And we would not know why Karbala took place. And this is found right in history. After Karbala, the caravan of captives was taken from Karbala first to Kufa. In Kufa, Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad, he thought that he has been able to silence any kind of courage or any kind of hope that the lovers of Ahlul Bayt had. Remember what was Kufa? Kufa was a city that for almost 5 years had seen the beautiful character and the teachings and had heard the sermons of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. Kufa was a city that when Imam Hassan alayhi salam said that it is not the time to fight, and if we continue the fight against Muawiyah now, then it is going to lead to more harm, and it is going to give Muawiyah the ability to eliminate any mention of Ahlul Bayt. Kufa was a city where many of the prominent people in Kufa said, no, we want to fight. Their imam is telling them this is not the time, but some of those prominent people were not convinced because they knew how evil Muawiyah was. They knew it because Imam Ali had taught them. They knew it because Imam Hassan himself had taught them. They knew it because Lady Zainab salamullahi alayha during those 5 years, almost 5 years when Imam Ali was ruling and governing from Kufa, she would be a teacher of Quran and in particular tafsir of Quran to the ladies of Kufa. That's how they knew that Muawiyah is not worthy to be even the governor of a small city, let alone the ruler of the entire Muslim world. The people of Kufa knew these things from Ahlul Bayt. And now, 20 years after the death of Imam Ali, the captives of Kufa, the captives of Ahlul Bayt, are being brought into that same city of Kufa, the city that had seen and had a memory of Imam Ali, a memory of Imam Hassan, a memory of Lady Zainab herself and her teaching and her worship and her perfection and her purity. The only thing that came into the mind of Ibn Ziyad is that we have to make them fear so much that they lose all hope. Sometimes there are people, they don't know any better. Like many people in this society, if you ask them what is a good life, they think a good life is to have a lot of fun, to have a lot of money, to have a lot of good food or toys. If all that I have seen is material enjoyment, then my thinking and my horizon is just going to be material. And even if I imagine the best life that I can have, if somebody were to tell me, make one wish and it will be granted, what will my wish be? It'll be a material wish because that's all that I have thought of. That's the limit of my horizon. For some people, even in the Muslim world, especially in Sham, especially in those places where they had only been introduced to Bani Umayyah or to people who were Muslim in name but didn't really know and understand and follow the teachings of Islam, that's all they knew. But Kufa had seen what is better than just power and fun and wealth. Kufa had seen purity. Kufa had seen beauty. And for Ibn Ziyad, the only way to win, the only way to defeat, was to try to convince people that there is no hope. What you are thinking of is a fairy tale. What you are remembering is history, but there is no future for following Ahlul Bayt. So the evil, the oppression, the brutality of Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad in Karbala and in Kufa, it was planned. It wasn't just his anger, but it was his strategy to try to eliminate any kind of memory, any kind of hope anybody had that through piety and through purity and through following Ahlul Bayt, you are ever going to be able to achieve success. That bloodshed, it was meant to wash away the memory of Imam Ali alayhi salam in particular. Because it was the memory of Imam Ali that gave life to the city of Kufa, religious and spiritual life, and that gave hope to the people of Kufa. They may have been weak in their character. They may not have followed what they should have followed, but they still knew who was right and true and who was not. And this is why Ibn Ziyad, he called a general assembly in his court. And all of the prominent people of Kufa, he brought them. And then he brought the captives. You see the strategy? Yazid doesn't need to use this strategy because the people of Sham don't know Ahlul Bayt. The people of Sham don't even know that there is a whole world of worship, of beautiful dua, of sacrifice, of knowledge. There is a whole ocean of guidance that is found within the person of every member of Ahlul Bayt. They have no idea. So Yazid's effort was to keep them away and not let people know. But Ibn Ziyad, he knew that the people of Kufa had seen Ahlul Bayt. His effort was to silence them. Not by making them invisible, but by breaking them. By making them appear hopeless, vulnerable. And so, the members of Ahlul Bayt, this is just now less than 3 days after Ashura, are brought to the court of Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad. Imam Zainul Abidin is still sick with the same fever that prevented him from fighting on the day of Ashura. And he has the greatest of chains and oppression on his person, because he is the only surviving man. So he is sick, and his neck is bound, his hands are bound, his feet are bound, and everywhere there are guards who are watching every move that he might make. And so at that point, Lady Zainab, she assumed the leadership of the caravan of captives. In Kufa, it was Lady Zainab who answered when Ibn Ziyad asked a question. كيف رأيت صنع الله بك? What do you think of what Allah did? Ibn Ziyad was making fun of Ahlul Bayt. He wanted to say that you lost. Your family is now martyred, killed, injured, captives. Nothing is left of that dream, of that claim, of that promise, and of that hope. And what is the task of Lady Zainab? One lady in a city where her father used to be the ruler, whose entire family has been slaughtered in front of her eyes, including her 2 children and her brother Abbas and her brother Imam Hussein, and so many others, and who sees the youngest members of her family in front of her, hungry, bloody, and in chains. And the governor now, who sits where Imam Ali, her father, used to sit, is mocking her. And what does Lady Zainab have to do? She has to convey to the world that the hope does not die. Ahlul Bayt can be oppressed, they can be injured, they can be attacked, but if there is any hope for humanity, then it is through Ahlul Bayt and nowhere else. And that is a message that only Lady Zainab can convey, and nobody else. Because nobody else is either old enough to speak or nobody else will be allowed to speak. And so Ibn Ziyad mocks, and Lady Zainab says that what we have seen is beauty. مَا رَأَيْتُ إِلَّا جَمِيلًا. These are a people Allah had destined for them to be martyred. They went and they were martyred according to what Allah had destined for them. But a day will come when they will stand before Allah and you will stand before Allah. And O Ibn Ziyad, I pity the day when you will stand before Hussein and you will have to answer for your crimes. It's difficult for us to even imagine what courage that took. There was an entire sermon that Lady Zainab gave, but she gave one answer to Ibn Ziyad that turned the entire tables. He wanted to mock her and belittle her and tell the people of Kufa, forget Ahlul Bayt, come over to Yazid, because there's nothing left of that memory or that hope. And just with those few words, Lady Zainab said that we might be standing in front of you as captives, but we have not been broken, we have not been defeated. We still have a message of hope, and we know that you will stand before your Creator, and we will stand before our Creator, and we will get justice for the crimes that you have committed. And history says that as Lady Zainab spoke, the older people of Kufa who were present, they began to weep. Not just at sympathy for Lady Zainab or for the captives, but they began to weep because they said it is as if we are living 20 years ago, and it is not a lady who is speaking before us, but it is Imam Ali alayhi salam himself, with that knowledge and that wisdom and that courage and that beauty, whom we are listening to. So single-handedly, Lady Zainab turned the tables and rekindled that light of hope in Ahlul Bayt that the people of Kufa had, and maybe many of them had forgotten. Until Ibn Ziyad himself had to now change the subject. And he turned to Imam Zainul Abidin, he said, "Who is this?" And people said, "This is Ali ibn al-Husayn." And then Ibn Ziyad said, "Did Allah not kill Ali ibn al-Husayn? Because Ali al-Akbar had been killed." So he said, "Did Allah not kill him?" And here in a very soft voice, Imam Zainul Abidin himself replied, "I had a brother, he was named Ali ibn al-Husayn, your people killed him, Allah did not kill him." Ibn Ziyad said, "Do you dare to answer me?" And Imam Zainul Abidin said that Allah yatawaffa al-anfus hina mawtiha. Allah is the one who receives the souls when a person dies. We shouldn't say that Allah has killed somebody. Allah is the most merciful Lord. He receives all souls, in particular the souls of the martyrs. Here Ibn Ziyad, once again, he wanted to change the subject. And Imam Zainul Abidin had answered him in a way that put him in his place. He said that I will kill this person who answers me, and Lady Zainab stood up. She said that, "O Ibn Ziyad, whatever you may do, you are not going to lay hands on Zainul Abidin unless you first kill me." And in his anger, Ibn Ziyad wanted to say, "Fine, then we will kill Lady Zainab first and then we will kill Imam Zainul Abidin." But now he was against the dignity and the chivalry of Arab tribes. If he were to arrest Lady Zainab, then it would show his weakness. To kill a man is something that people may have thought is normal, because they were killed in battle, they were killed in different circumstances. But to kill a lady who is a captive, and that too a lady now who has shown her courage and her presence of mind in the most difficult circumstances, that would only show how weak and how much of a coward Ibn Ziyad was. So together we can say Imam Zainul Abidin and Lady Zainab. And in particular, Lady Zainab salamullahi alayha, just like her mother did after Karbala, she defeated the strategy and the strength of Ibn Ziyad with her courage and with her wisdom. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And just one more example from Syria. Because when Ibn Ziyad realized that for the captives to stay in Kufa is going to cause him more grief, he sent them to Sham. And Yazid had already seen that people were angry at the oppression that had been suffered by Ahlul Bayt. They had heard about it. He was afraid that even in Sham, there were companions, there were people who had been to Medina, there were people who knew what was going on. Yazid was afraid that this would spread. And so very soon after the family of the Prophet came to Syria, Yazid, he's made up an entirely false story. He said, I love the family of the Prophet. I had nothing to do what Ibn Ziyad did against Ahlul Bayt. If Imam Hussein had come to Syria, I would have honored him. Ibn Ziyad was the one who committed a grave crime. And then, in front of his court, he said that you are the family of the Prophet. I will honor you and I will give you whatever you ask. Now, Ibn Ziyad had one strategy. Lady Zainab had defeated it. Yazid had a different strategy. And see how beautifully Lady Zainab defeated the strategy of Yazid as well. The two most powerful people in the world at that time, and one woman who is a captive and is in chains defeats all of their politics and all of their armies and all of their power. In Kufa, when Ibn Ziyad wanted Lady Zainab to break down crying, she didn't shed a tear. When he said, you have been killed, she said, Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. This is what Allah had decreed for us, and I have no objection and no concern about what Allah has decreed. When Yazid wants to say that this was a mistake made by somebody else, Lady Zainab said that, Yazid, you have told us you will give us whatever we want. Until now, we have not had a chance to cry. Until now, we have been suffering. We have not had a chance to mourn. So grant us a chance that we may mourn our martyrs, and then we will leave Syria. Now Yazid had already publicly promised that he was going to give Ahlul Bayt whatever they asked. He could not back down from that promise. And this is the wisdom of Allah, that Fir'aun wishes to keep Bani Israel as his slaves, but Musa grows up in the house of Fir'aun. The people of Arabia, they wished to eliminate the message of Prophet Muhammad. But those Jewish tribes who were later to be the greatest enemies of the Prophet, it was they themselves who had taught Aus and Khazraj that a prophet is going to come to the city and he is going to guide the believers. They themselves were the reason that the Muhajirin and the Ansar, many of them became Muslim, in particular the Ansar and some of the Muhajirin. They were enemies, but it was their ahadith that had taught people what was the truth. In the Battle of Siffin, when Ammar ibn Yasir was martyred, then many people said that Imam Ali was right, we had been misguided. And do you know why they said that? Because when Ammar ibn Yasir was killed fighting on the side of Imam Ali in the Battle of Siffin, they said, Amr ibn As used to quote a hadith. Amr ibn As, the friend and advisor of Muawiyah, he used to quote a hadith that Ammar ibn Yasir will be killed by the evil party. And Muawiyah, he said to Amr ibn As that, Amr ibn As, you have destroyed me. It is by your hadith that people, they are now leaving my support. And Ibn As, he answered Muawiyah, how did I know so many years ago that this was going to take place? This was a hadith of the Prophet. The Prophet mentioned that hadith because he knew. But Amr ibn As didn't know why the Prophet had quoted that hadith. He had his own animosities, his own reasons. It was from the mouth of the enemy. that the truth, it came forth. Whether it be Fir'aun, or whether it be the enemies of the Prophet, or whether it be Muawiyah, or whether it be Yazid. It was Yazid himself who gave Lady Zainab that platform against his will. But now this is the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in Syria, the poetry and the message of Karbala reached the Muslims, and in particular the women of Damascus, through the words of Lady Zainab. Until even Yazid felt that it is not possible for Ahlul Bayt to stay in Damascus anymore. And so he called them and he said that I will send you with honor back to Medina. It wasn't honor, it was fear that caused Yazid to send Lady Zainab and Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salatu wassalam from Syria back to Medina. This was the wisdom and the courage of Lady Zainab that gave 2 victories to Ahlul Bayt. In Kufa, by stopping her tears, and in Damascus, by shedding her tears. And this is why one of the things that we know Lady Zainab for is what is known in the Quran and in Islam as Sabr Jameel. فَاصْبِرْ صَبْرًا جَمِيلًا إِنَّهُمْ يَرَوْنَهُ بَعِيدًا وَنَرَاهُ قَرِيبًا. Allah says, be patient with a beautiful patience. They think it is far away. I can do what I want. Allah's not going to punish me. وَنَرَاهُ قَرِيبًا. But we know that when Allah has promised something, it might be thousands of years in the future, but it is close. The promise of Ahlul Bayt, it's not far because it's in the future. It's not far because their enemies have arrogance and power. If Allah has promised it, then it is at the door and it is about to happen, regardless of how many days or years or centuries in the future it may be. Lady Zainab is a message of power and the power of patience. She said the most tears, but they were not tears of weakness. They were tears of strength and confidence and trust in Allah and faith. Because this was the way that she kept alive and she spread the message of Imam Hussein. But the one thing that gave the greatest grief to Ahlul Bayt, to Lady Zainab, to Imam Zainul Abidin, was the memory of what they suffered. The memory of what took place in Karbala, and in particular in the dungeons of Sham. When the family of the Prophet came back to Medina, it is said that Lady Zainab was surrounded by the women of Ahlul Bayt. And the entire city of Medina was mourning. But Lady Zainab, she went not home, but to the masjid of the Prophet. And she stood before the grave of Prophet Muhammad. Lady Zainab now is standing, and the ladies of Ahlul Bayt surround her. And those people who were lovers of Ahlul Bayt and were not in Karbala, they have joined. Baneen is there. Salama is there. The people of Medina are listening. And the first majlis of Imam Hussein is recited by Lady Zainab in Medina at the grave of the Prophet. Ya Jadda, inni na'iyatun ilayka akhil Hussein. Oh my grandfather, Rasulullah, I come to you and I offer you condolences of the martyrdom of my brother Hussein. And then Lady Zainab recounted what took place in Karbala. Prophet Muhammad was there in Karbala spiritually, but here in his masjid at his shrine, his granddaughter, Lady Zainab, is once again telling the people of Medina and recounting in front of the Prophet what took place in Karbala. She said to her grandfather, "Oh, my grandfather, the messenger of Allah, we were there in Karbala, surrounded by our enemies. We who are the closest ones to you, who are your children, who are your successors, who are your heirs. We were surrounded by those who called us traitors, who called us criminals, who oppressed us. And one by one, the heroes from our family would go before the enemy to offer their sacrifice." How can Lady Zainab describe that Ali Akbar, who resembled the Prophet in his character, in his speech, in his features, went before the enemy and he was martyred? How could Lady Zainab describe as each of those holy figures, those pious figures, was martyred by their enemies? She recounted the sacrifice of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas and the sons of al-Baneen. She regarded the sacrifice and recounted the martyrdom of the descendants of Aqil, of Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, of her loved ones, her near and dear ones. But then Lady Zainab broke down when she began to describe the martyrdom of her brother, Imam Hussein. That, "Oh Fatima, oh Prophet Muhammad, your Zainab was there when Hussein came and said that the time has come for me to bid farewell. I go before the enemy. Oh Zainab, I ask you not to forget me in your night prayer. Oh Zainab, I ask you to make sure that you protect and you guard my son Zain al-Abidin, my daughter Sakina, the orphans, the widows, the survivors of Karbala." Lady Zainab, she came to Medina. She said that, "Oh my grandfather, I have fulfilled that promise I made to Imam Hussein before his martyrdom. But how did I fulfill that pledge? How many times was my body struck? Was I injured? How many times did I shield those children with my own body so the enemy would not strike them? Ya Rasulallah, I offer you condolences and I return to you those members of your family who survived Karbala. Your granddaughter has come back to Medina. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا وَأَيَّ مُنْقَلَبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ. Once again, I ask you to recite Surah Al-Fatiha and to give the thawab of that recitation to the marhumin of your family and your community and the marhumin of our sponsors. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'een. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Hussein.
Zainab, 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 protector of Hussein, Zainab, 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 light of Ali's eye, Zainab, 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 comfort of Kauthar, Zainab, 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 shield of Walaya, Zainab, 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 O witness of sorrow, Zainab, we join you with our tears. With strength and faith, your witness stands pristine throughout the years. O witness of sorrow, Zainab, we join you with our tears. With strength and faith, your witness stands pristine throughout the years. Once there were 5 under the cloak, they lie in graves apart. Each one so close and dear to you, each loss trembled your heart. Now thanks to you, we grieve as well, a blessing in each tear. Love for these 5, it is our pride, it keeps their guidance near. Love for these 5, it is our pride, it keeps their guidance near. Zainab, Zainab, protector of Hussein, Zainab, 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 light of Ali's eye, Zainab, 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 comfort of Kauthar, Zainab, 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 shield of Walaya, Zainab, 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 O witness of sorrow, Zainab, we join you with our tears. With strength and faith, your witness stands pristine throughout the years. O witness of sorrow, Zainab, we join you with our tears. With strength and faith, your witness stands pristine throughout the years. From youth you knew you must prepare always to sacrifice. Your mother, father, brothers too, for God you paid the price. You raised your sons only to die so young on Ashura. Their lives a trust to be returned back to their Lord Allah. Their lives a trust to be returned back to their Lord Allah. Zainab, Zainab, protector of Hussein, Zainab, 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 light of Ali's eye, Zainab, 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 comfort of Kauthar, Zainab, 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 shield of Walaya, Zainab, 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 Zainab. O witness of sorrow, Zainab, we join you with our tears. With strength and faith, your witness stands pristine throughout the years. O witness of sorrow, Zainab, we join you with our tears. With strength and faith, your witness stands pristine throughout the years. A caravan shackled in chains, Hussein's son oh so ill. But thanks to you, Walaya rose and crushed Umayyah's will. From Karbala to Sham you marched, a journey with such pain. If not for you, we'd hardly know of our master Hussein. If not for you, we'd hardly know of our master Hussein. Zainab, Zainab, protector of Hussein, Zainab, 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 light of Ali's eye, Zainab, 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 comfort of Zahra, Zainab, 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 shield of Walaya, Zainab, 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 Salawat.
وجب زيارك.
السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام على علي أمير المؤمنين. السلام على فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام على الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة. السلام على علي بن الحسين زين العابدين. السلام على محمد بن علي الباقر. السلام على جعفر بن محمد الصادق. السلام على موسى بن جعفر الكاظم. السلام على علي بن موسى الرضا. السلام على محمد بن علي الجواد. السلام على علي بن محمد الهادي. السلام على الحسن بن علي الزكي العسكري. السلام على الحجة بن الحسن القائم المهدي. صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين. صلوات